exclusive web edition of Cuse Countdown. I'm your host, Kevin Barry, alongside our analysts, Dan Cohen and Russ Reed, taking a look at SU Lacrosse's matchup against St. John's in Queens. Syracuse is coming off a tough trip to Virginia, where the Cavaliers ran right through the number 3 Orange.
Syracuse did win that second quarter, that nice between-the-legs goal by Tim Desko, but after that, Bocklip, Briggs, Steele, Stanwyck, too much for the Orange defense.
Yeah, the Orange showed good presence and poise at times, but sadly it wasn't through the entire 4 quarters.
Let's take a closer look at the season so far at the X with the faceoff. It's hard to ignore what's going on in net for Syracuse. Matt Lehrman's rise to the goal in the wake of John Galloway's graduation hasn't been going quite as planned. Maryland transfer Dominic Lamolinera is giving the redshirt sophomore a run for his money, so it's just back to basics for the Villanova native.
No, I don't think it's a controversy. It's our first loss. Obviously, Virginia's a very good team, number 1 in the country. But for me, I just go in there, I just try and see the ball, save the ball, and that's my job. I do it as best I can every weekend.
That's all simple in theory, but a little more complicated when you have another goalie breathing down your neck. What was different about Virginia was not only the bragging rights at stake, but Lehrman, for the first time this season, came out in net after halftime. So he's the starter, not so fast. After giving up 6 goals, Lamolinera took over for the 4th quarter. Goalie battle still on.
I think Matt played so well in the first half. A little colder out here today that, we hesitated to make the change at halftime because of how well he was doing. We decided to make the change just to see if Dom could give us a little pick-me-up going into the 4th quarter.
A pick-me-up was exactly what Syracuse needed, but the 4th quarter was a little bit too late. The Cuse was 8 of 28 on faceoffs and picked up half the ground balls the Cavaliers did. SU might be expected to be in the limelight come the postseason, but for now, it might have been just a little too bright.
We just had a fallout today, and to be honest, I think we're going to get right back on it this week and get back into the same stuff. It's the first big game on ESPN. I mean, everyone was nervous, not making an excuse, but we should have definitely came out a lot better than
A pretty much even matchup between the New York State rivals, just not the case if you turn the calendar back to last season. Those vastly different schedules included the matchup last year, Senior Day in the Dome, and the final game of the regular season. The Cuse ran through the Johnnies 20-6 and nearly doubled up St. John's in shots. But that's when Syracuse had its illustrious class of 2011, and it wasn't coming off a loss to Virginia. So Jackie Dresch catches us up on what Syracuse is going through its mind heading into the matchup this week.
Coming off a loss to Virginia on a national stage, Syracuse opens up Big East play when it takes on St. John's. The Orange looks to maintain its perfect conference record before it departs for the ACC.
It'd be great to leave without any blemishes on our Big East record. If we're in it again next year, then it's going to be the same goal. We just want to win as many games as possible, and that means getting through the Big East, getting through the Notre Dames and Providence, and this week St. John's.
We're taking it one game at a time. St. John's, Virginia, it doesn't matter who you're going into play. We're going to go in the same mentality we did going into Virginia and the Klockner. We got to come out with a win. We got something to prove.
I expect a hard-fought game from them. I think that they have a bad taste in their mouth from last year's game with the score the way it was. I know some of their players weren't happy about that.
After his performance against Virginia, head coach Coach Desko said that Matt Lehrman will be the starting goalie going forward. He's expected to be in the cage when St. John's and Syracuse face off this Saturday in Queens. Jackie Dresch, Citrus TV.
And 2 of the players that Lehrman are going to face is the sophomore attack led by Kiernan McCardle and Kevin Cernuda.
McCardle coming into this season had a good freshman year. He's a very deceptive Dodger, and he's going to have a strong game against SU, against his defense and the goalies.
And Cernuda not too shabby either. He's 2nd on the team in points this year. He's very athletic and uses his pure speed to get to the goal.
And Jeff Lohman and Jason Miller rounded out Miller in his 6th year as the head coach.
Yeah, he gives up about over 10 goals a game, 16 against Yale, but only 5 in that win versus Siena.
Now our analysts run the unsettled situation. So they've come over midfield, they still have numbers, and they're going to make sure they finish these topics. First off, Syracuse will finish 40% or better on the faceoffs.
Going to give up the goaling opportunity, and I'm going to feed this one, Kevin. Syracuse not impressive against Virginia at the faceoff X. It's been well documented. 8 for 28 against UVA, and while St. John's isn't of the caliber of the Cavaliers, Still think Syracuse is going to struggle again this weekend, not in the top 25 in face-off conversions, and Chris Dadio, not impressive against UVA. This was supposed to be answered going into the season, the face-off situation, but still not answered after the Virginia performance.
I'm going to have to disagree with you, Dan. I'm going to finish this one. I think SU was outmatched against Virginia. Virginia is 60% on the face-off. St. John's only at 50%, and that's where Syracuse's level is at right now. And I think Chris Dadio will come out this game more energized and more refocused to get back to where he was in that game against Army, that level of play.
Now we'll take that number, 50%, and apply it to the extra man opportunity. Will Syracuse be better than 50% against St. John's?
Not in this game. I'm going to have to feed this one. SU is only 33% on the extra man opportunities, while St. John's penalty kill is at 81%. I think that spells doom for the Orange. I just think this early on in the season they haven't gelled. They've been turning the ball over when they are a man up. They just haven't been getting good quality shots. And I just think it's too early on in the season to get that going to a level they want.
The last two games, Syracuse against Army and Virginia, 2 for 9 in the extra man opportunity. And you saw in that game against Army, the Black Knights played the Orange very well, close to the goal. Their man-down defense was very impressive against SU. And Syracuse has had some chemistry issues on the man-up. A lot of new players coming in, some new minis. The only player who scored the last two games on the man-up for SU, Derek Maltz, who is coming in, replacing Stephen Keogh on the attack. Syracuse has to get more contributions throughout their attack and their midfield on the extra man.
At times, Syracuse will look like it's firing on all cylinders, just maybe not all the units at once. But one unit that has had trouble throughout is the goalkeepers. We talked about the controversy before. So, feed or finish, Matt Lehrman is going to play into the second half against the Johnnies.
Going to feed it for the third time, Kevin. I'm going to take Lehrman leaving at halftime. It's worked for Syracuse against Army and against Albany. And against Virginia, Lehrman said that he wasn't ready to play the third quarter. When Lama Lanera came in, it was just too late for Syracuse to come back against this #1 team in the country, the defending national champions. I think you have to pull Lehrman because, as we've seen, he's not ready to play the second half yet.
I completely agree. I'm going to feed this one, too. It just seems like his head wasn't in it in that third quarter. He just seemed completely out of it. And I think if Matt Lehrman isn't ready to play 3 quarters, he should not play past that second quarter. And I don't think we saw the best out of Dom Lama-Lanera. I know he didn't make a single save in that fourth quarter against Virginia, but I think that was due to the fact that he was ice cold coming off the bench and thrown into the fire there.
Now, the matchup between Syracuse and St. John's is the battle for the phrase New York's college team. So what's the X factor for Syracuse to bring home that slogan?
Kevin, I'm going to take JoJo Marasco as my X factor for this game against the Johnnies. He was held without a goal against the Cavaliers, and the last time that happened was against Hobart last year in the Carrier Dome. He is the spark plug for this offense. Just too many expectations wearing number 22, and he's looked up and down the last few games. JoJo needs to get his groove back, and I think he will against St. John's.
Absolutely. You can always count on JoJo to show up somewhere on the stat sheet. But my X factor is going to have to be the midfield line, in particular the face-off guys. And that first line there of Chris Dadio, Pete McCartney, and Kevin Drew on the wings. Against that game in Virginia, in Charlottesville, you saw Chris Dadio. He was winning face-offs at times. He was popping the ball out ahead. But the problem was the guys on the wings weren't getting to those ground balls. And consequently, SU was doubled up 42-21 in ground balls. And I think that's where the Orange really missed Joel White, his ability to get ground balls off the face-off and run in transition.
It's probably not going to be the runaway win that Syracuse took last year. It's a different-looking Orange squad. But what will be the final score when SU and St. John's face off?
I think it's going to be a little closer. I think Syracuse does get some more offensive contributions throughout the roster. 11-8, Syracuse walks out of Queens with a win, a bounce-back win after their loss to Virginia. Just think it's going to be a little closer than last year in the Dome.
I think the Orange has come out with a win too, Dan, but I'm going to go 12-7 in this game. I don't think there's outmatched as much on the face-off X. I think the offense did show some rhythms at time against the Virginia Cavaliers, and I think when they were gelling, it was great to watch. And I think the Lamo-Lanera and Lehrman experiment splitting halves will be going on again.
That's all the time we have for this Cuse Countdown exclusive webisode edition of Syracuse and St. John's. Be sure to join the conversation on Twitter by following us at Citrus TV Sports, and you can even follow the show at Cuse Countdown, and also be sure to use the hashtag CCLax whenever you talk about Syracuse lacrosse. Also, be sure to keep following all of our content on sportsblog.citrustv.net. Thanks for watching.